Thanks for coming to hang out with us today. Ruck, Buttercup is a podcast hosted by Deployed Love. We chat about real things that military families deal with and help you to love the call to action. So you know the drill. Ruck, Buttercup. Welcome back to Ruck, Buttercup. I know you guys probably missed us this month. We didn't have an episode that came up on the normal streaming for you because we went live on Instagram. So if you guys missed that, you need to go back and watch the replay. We talked about Murphy's Law and then just a little bit more about Deployed Love because a lot of you may not know that that's part of the organization we are part of. So we're finishing up March with a different topic. We decided instead of just continuing to complain about Murphy's Law to bring a guest on with us.
That's right. So at Ruck, Buttercup, we usually gear our conversations more towards the spouse because, well, we're all spouses. But Deployed Love, we are connecting all hearts, not just those from spouse to spouse. So we had a lot of mamas, military mamas, reach out over the years asking for tips and support. And we thought, what better way than to do a podcast all about that. So I'm really excited to introduce our host. She is so witty. She had me laughing when I was reading her Q&A that we sent to her. And I really can't wait to see what she has to share with you all. So welcome to the podcast, Sherry.
Thank you guys so very much. I'm honored to be here and I'm super excited to be invited on, but I just can't wait to just share like a mama's heart with the wives' heart and just see how we can just work together to be a super great support system for our military guys and girls.
Yeah. So before we kind of get started talking and seeing how just the three of us can make that happen, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah. So I am from a little town in Michigan, a little rural town, and my husband and I have owned a plumbing business for 21 years. So we're plumbers by trade. I am also a licensed pastor and in the state of Michigan, and we have a nonprofit called Forward that fights human trafficking here. But I am a mom of two boys in the military. They're both now married. And my most exciting newest role is that we're about to have our Army kids are about to have our very first grandbaby. So
exciting.
Any minute. Yeah, I'm so excited about that.
That's really exciting. So when your boys, so we're going to dive into our first topic. So when your boys first joined the armed forces, did you have any experience with the military, any military background?
It's funny, but the only military experience that I had was bad. It was bad. So my dad is a Vietnam vet, and I grew up just watching the effects of combat and how what they called in his generation was shell shocked, right? But now on this side of life, I realize it was probably far more PTSD than just being shell shocked, and how he had just to fight through that and find healing in that. So I watched that part of it. But also when I was in high school, we went through Desert Storm and I got to watch as the men in dress blues, came through the school and came to our teacher and had to tell her that her son had just died overseas. And so everything I knew about the military was super scary. It was war. It was terrifying. But I also had this great love of country, this great patriotism. I loved our troops. I supported them any way I knew I could. I just never dreamed that it would be me that would be sending my kids off to something where they could actually be coming back in a flag draped box, right? So I didn't know the ins and outs of military. I didn't know that it could be great, as far as careers and all that kind of stuff. I just knew it was terrifying and just a stereotype of that. So that was my military experience when my boys came and said, hey, we want to join the military.
Yeah, I think a lot of families, especially who don't have a connection with the military or their connection is very limited, the first thing they think of when your child tells you that they want to join the military is it's instantly like that infantry, that like ranger, that special forces unit type thing, because that's what we see in the movies. And I mean, that's what my husband is. So like, and that's what my parents were. I grew up military too. And so like, that's what I knew. But then like you look at it and there is so many different types of careers. Like, you could be a musician, you can be a cook, you can do computers, and there's so many different things. So there's some jobs where you may not even ever deploy. So a lot of people automatically go from like 0 to oh my God, like really quickly.
Yes,
And I've
yes.
had this conversation with so many parents. I mean, of course, a lot of the parents I've talked with are parents who have their sons in the infantry unit, just because those are the ones that I've connected with through my husband's units. But I always have to tell them, like, this is all they do. They train all day long to do their job really well. So like, you have to trust that they're using those skills. But it can be really scary. Like,
Terrifying.
not
Yes.
knowing what's going to happen, or like the ins and outs, like, like, can't talk to them. Why can't I talk to my kid? Like, he's my kid. I should talk to my kid. I feel like a lot of parents struggle with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And part of it is my boys are now married. And what I told my boys is that if you are deployed and you get one phone call home, that goes to your wife. Like, you need to call her and then she'll get to me. And having to reconcile that as being, I can't talk to my kid. If he's talking to somebody, then I'm happy, like, you have to just realize that they're doing the best they can.
I just have to say that's such a good mama thing for you to do, because I have dealt with mamas who did not like that. They're like, I'm your mom, you're calling me. I don't care if you're married. I don't care if you have like, so, and I think that's really important for moms to kind of relinquish, being like, hey, you're married now. Like, she is your first contact point. And that's why it's important for mamas and daughter-in-laws or son-in-laws to have a good relationship when you're part of a military family.
Yeah, especially if they are deployed, and to have that family surrounding you is super important. And to maintain that relationship is super powerful, because like I said, we just relinquishing that to the wife and to count on her to just say, hey, even if it's a text, I just talked to him, he's alive, he's good, I'm good. Like, I'm good then. I just know that he's okay. So yeah, it's super important that we keep our relationship strong.
Yeah. And taking a step back, did your kids ever talk about being a soldier, or did it all of a sudden was just like an out of school, like thrown at you kind of thing?
I wish you guys could see Sherry's face right now.
No. So my oldest son, he's super brilliant. He's very smart. He went off to college for a year, and had like scholarships and was ready to go. And he came home over spring break, which would have been March, and sat us down and said, I want to join the Navy. And if a UFO would have landed on my front lawn, I would have been less surprised than that. No, that's totally out of left field. So there was no preparing for that. There was just no, you're not going into the Navy. But I knew that if he had that on his heart and would sit us down and say that it was worth us, letting him talk that out. So yeah, neither one of them. Now, my youngest son had always talked about being in the Army since he was little, but you kind of just think,
Yeah, it's just a boy thing. Like, oh, Army's cool. Like, I'm just going to be a soldier. Yeah.
Yeah. But they both went to college for a year, and then decided there's really this thing that pushed them and launched them into military. So
that's
parents,
interesting.
yeah, right. Because it's something as parents, you have to say, okay, we have to surrender our dreams for them and let them step into who they're going to be. So because we own a plumbing business, it was going to be super smart. They're going to be plumbers, right? They're going to come back and run the business. But we decided that, we have to let our dreams for them go, because they have to be able to dream their own dreams, and we have to be able to be the parents that support those dreams and not dream killers. And so out of that, we got 2 military kids.
So how long have both of them served? Like, I know one's already out.
Yep. So my oldest son, he served 4 years, and he was not deployed, but he was stationed in Japan for that whole 4 years. And then my youngest son, he's been in since 2015.
Okay.
So, and he's still active duty, and he's in Pensacola at the moment. Eglin, I guess, is the Air Force base that he's at.
Yeah, I find it interesting that they went to college and kind of realized after they started trying a career that wasn't for them. And that, was there something like, did they meet people at college that were joining, or just kind of still kind of out of the blue, or did they really ever tell you?
No, my oldest son, Adam, I don't really know what would have triggered him, except I know that he was kind of struggling trying to find his career. And I think he thought that this might be a great opportunity just to go see the world and just to have some experience. And I think it it can only be by God's hand that he would have went that way, is how I feel, because it wouldn't be something he'd probably dream of on his own. I think my youngest son, from him always wanted to be a soldier, there was something in there, that, so he was like, I have to fulfill this thing to be a soldier.
So what was one of the, like, once they went to basic training, what was like one of the toughest things that you felt that you didn't know? Like, was there something that you wish someone had told you when they went to basic training or when they first went to their first duty station? Or was it just kind of like both feet jump in and just keep treading type of situation for you?
So I had no clue what military was. I had no idea what it was going to look like. I had no idea. Didn't have a clue. And so what I found was I was completely lost, and I didn't know how to be that mom for them. I didn't know how to be, because when they went in, they weren't married. So I didn't really have, the wives to guide me like I have now. Like I have military wives that are like, this is what this all means. This is what this is going to look like. And so it was just me and my husband. We were green as could be. And what I found is, like, in the circle of people that I have, and I've heard you ladies talk about this too, like all the civilian people I have in my life had no clue either. And what they were offering me was the best they could do to empathize, the best they could do to support me, the best that they had to love me through it. But it was just really making me mad because it wasn't support that I needed. And I just really felt lost in, how do I first surrender your kids, right? You got to let them go completely. There's no cell phone contact when they go off to basic. There's, nothing. And then you get these letters home and it's like, oh my gosh, these poor kids, like, who do I call to save my children? Right.
I really want to read a letter from a son to a mom, because I know that they're going to be so different from like what my spouse wrote to me. So like I want to know, like, are they being like strong and like, I'm doing good, mom, or like, I really miss home, what was I thinking type of thing?
Yeah, no, it was very raw. But then after they would say all this raw, terrible stuff at the end, don't worry, mom, I love you. Like, but you already said all this stuff, but there was really hard times when they were really, because you're not allowed to talk to anybody anytime, you're not allowed to have an opinion. You're told what to wear, when to wear it, and how to do this. You can't be angry. You have to hide your emotion. You are just they take these kids who you've shaped into beautiful people, and then they strip them down to nothing and then rebuild them up into soldiers or sailors or Marines, or, they have to be rebuilt. And so in that rebuilding, it is raw, it is hard, but I just have to keep, being the, yay, you got this, and be the encouraging mom. And in the background, I'm just weeping like, God, you've got to get them through this. Like, they have got to come out the other side, and you've got to give me the strength to do this. And I had no resources to figure out how to be that mom for them. So that was the hardest part, because I didn't have anybody who had a kid in the military, let alone two kids in the military. And how do I possibly, navigate through this?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lack of support for parents. You have, you can find Facebook groups. Thank goodness for social media nowadays. Like nowadays, it's a lot easier to connect with other like-minded people going through the same things. But, 10 years ago, that really wasn't the same thing. So I couldn't imagine those mamas from about 10 years ago going through that and having to wait for those letters and having to kind of wait for the word of mouth of like how things go from their kids. Because we know our kids don't always tell us what they're doing or how it's supposed to be.
What they do share is going to be like the wave tops, right? Just the very, so, if they're sharing this and it's that awful, it's got to be far worse than that, because they don't tell you just how bad it is.
Yeah, I think, and one of my biggest, like I mentioned, I'm an FRG leader too. So I connect, and that's one of the organizations that parents can connect with, at least to ask questions in regards to their child's current unit. But the amount of times that I had to like sit down with parents and explain how things happen, how to prepare them for like how a deployment is going to happen, how they're going to hear about communication, what communication may or may not look like, how homecoming would look like. And I'm sitting there going like, boy, I'm going to lay this out on every single one of those boys when they get home about how they did not prepare their parents when they come back, because I'm just like, unfortunately, a lot of parents are really clueless about how the protocols are, like what I can and can't say, what their soldiers can and cannot say, why haven't I heard from my son in like 4 days? Like he's dead. Like, and unfortunately that's like the thing that clicks in all their heads is I haven't heard from them. So like drilling into like parents' heads, even spouses' heads, like they're the same. Is like no news, good news. No news is good news. Like just if you haven't heard from them, they are okay. But yeah, it's one of those, like, I've had parents who like hallucinated. They for sure thought that their son was dead. And I've had some amazing parents who have been like always like backing me up when I say like, unfortunately, I can't say anything yet and things like that, which I hate doing. I feel like soldiers don't always tell their parents the ins and outs, whereas like spouses, they tell. And I think it's more because spouses are more like in their face, like, tell me how this is going to happen. Like, how is XYZ, connect the dots here and there. My husband gets mad at me all the time. I've been in the military my entire life. And sometimes I'm just like, okay, explain this to me again. He goes, Ashley, I have told you how this works like 1,000 times. I'm like, I get it. But the Army likes to change things up every so often. So like, let's just go over it again.
Right. And for me, it was like I had two different branches and they don't do anything the same.
Nope, they do not.
Which blew my, like, why can't you all just do it the same? It would be far
They call
easier
things differently. Yeah, they call things differently. Everything is different. It's
Yeah. So my youngest son, who's still in the Army, he's gotten far better at like laying it out. Like, this is what deployment's going to look like. And this is, you can't give timelines, right? Because it's military. You have no idea. You could be, we're not leaving for 6 months and all of a sudden he gets a phone call and he's leaving tomorrow. So all of that's up in the air, but at least he's getting far better about this is the parameter, like this is the box, what it's going to look like. And then now his wife is good about like filling in the gaps or, the things that he's missed, because she spends more time with him and she's asking more questions, like you said, and she's able to get more information out of it. But they're getting better. I will say that. But I think in the beginning, they just didn't like, what do you want to know? Like, they didn't in their heads, they like, what do you want to know about this? And so I'd ask 100 questions, which would just frustrate them, right? Because sometimes they don't have answers. They really don't know themselves. Yep. Where I want to know as a mom, it was always growing up, who you going with? What time are you going to be back? Like, there was and they really had no answers for me that way. So to be able to have it open-ended and say, this is the best I can get, as a parent, that's probably all they know. That's the best information.
And that is all they know, unfortunately, especially like if they're like lower enlisted, like if they're just like an E3, 4, 2, they probably don't know anything. They probably know like, I think we're leaving. Like if they say, I think we're leaving, like that's probably a safe assumption that that's all they know.
Right. Right. True.
They just do as they're told.
Yeah. So to just be okay with that, being okay with not knowing 100% because they don't know. And you have to just trust that you'll get the information as they get it, and that's the best they got.
So as a military mama, I know my mom is one now, and both my parents, obviously. My brother joined the Air Force like 5 years ago. And I think the coolest thing to hear from them, though, is that we don't get this from the military spouse side because we dated the guys, but the pride and the change that they go through from your baby to these men that, like, when you come out of basic training, they're men, like they come out completely different. What was that experience from? I just want to hear from the mom side of that.
Yeah. So the part that I talked about earlier about how they break you down and rebuild you, really the first time that we got to actually see them become something is when you get to see them in their element, like whatever they've been trained in. When you get to actually see them in that element, you're like, holy cow, like you are, the weight that you carry, or because if they're over other people, or if they have, like units they're part of, and just wow, like you are. And my kids are super, like they're humble in a way, like they didn't tell me a lot about it. So to be able to go and look where they work, or, to go to the bases, or, that kind of stuff, it's like, holy smokes, like this is a big deal. You're kind of a big deal. Like this is the military that you're in. And you have this swelling and this pride of it. But I remember getting ready just to go see them after they graduated. And oh my gosh, just to see them all in their uniforms and to how they've been transformed into men. It's like, who are these children? And you just
where's my baby? Yeah.
Yes. And your heart will just burst because there's so much pride in it. Like they are doing something bigger than themselves, and they are, laying down their life for something bigger than themselves, and just the pride that they have in stepping into that position. But as parents, like, we are so proud of our kids for, taking on something that for us is terrifying, but my goodness, like, you're cool. Like, you guys are cool kids, like, grew up to be pretty powerful men. So
that's how my dad responded to. He's like, I swear he grew 2 feet when he got, like, when we picked him up from basic training, because he just held himself
taller.
Yeah. He just acted differently.
Yeah. Well, because they've been through it, and they came out the other side, and holy smokes, like, they have
to be proud of themselves too. I mean, really.
Well, I mean, basic training and any of those special courses that they're going to take before they join their first unit. So like airborne school or whatever school they do are really intense courses. Like, not everyone makes it through. So like, you have to, like, for those who are listening, who have not experienced that basic training portion of their soldier's career, I mean, it breaks them, like we've said, like, it breaks them down. They tell them all these different things. Like, if they have a girlfriend, they're going to tell them, like, your girlfriend's not there waiting for you anymore. She don't care. She's sleeping around, whatever it may be. Like, they're there to break them down to their core so that they can build them up to be these amazing men and women who are there to protect the world. In essence, I mean, we are the world police type of thing. So, they have to break them in order for them to get them in that headspace. And military service members are some of the best people, most compassionate, most caring people that you'll meet. And that's because they're laying their life down. They're serving their country for a better cause.
Yeah. And it raises them up, like, the whole training part of it. Like, when you go to boot camp or basic training, or, whatever they want to call it, it's the resilience that comes out of it. And I didn't know how bad it was. And I try not, when I run into moms that their kids are going in, I try not to tell them, because coming out of it, like, my kids would say, you never believe what they do to us in there. And they would tell me things, and I never want this in the mom's heads, but it's brutal. Some of the stuff these kids go through just to build in them, like, the soldier, the Marine, like, you are going to be a war machine, and you're resilient to stupidity, like, this is going to build you into something much bigger than you ever dreamed. But going through it, it's like going through the crucible, like, it's going through hell to get there. And they come out stronger on the other side. And you see them, even my son, who's now out of the military, like, he's out of the Navy, he still carries, the footprint or the imprint of military in him as everyday life.
Yeah, they'll always have that. And I think that's also, like, really important. Like, even, like, we have a lot of families who parents, who, majority of the kids, like, who join the military, a lot of times they join it because that's really their only option. Like, they don't have money to go to college, but they want to go to college. So a lot of people a lot of kids sign up to go into the services so that they have that opportunity to be able to chase those dreams that they have. So they're, only doing 4 years. And again, like, I always tell families, like, there's so many careers that they can choose from. So they'll instantly jump to the conclusion that they're going to pick an infantry unit, or a unit that's, going to be in the nit and gritty of it all if something happens. Sure. I think it's really important because you can tell the difference between kids that have done a couple years of service to those who don't. There's a very big difference of how they hold themselves, how they perform their jobs, how they treat other people. Like, I can always tell, like, oh, you're prior service. Like, either it's the way that they talk, or it's the way that they hold themselves. And I'm like, did you do a couple years? And they'll be like, yeah, like, I did such and such. And then I went to school and I got to do this. And, some people only say they're going in for 4 years and then they stay in career. And then some just do those 4 years. And so I think it's important that parents, like, it can be scary, but it's also a life skill that they would not get anywhere else.
No, at all. No, that would be something that it only comes from the military. That's it. Yeah. You can't get it anywhere else. Like, there's a level of respect. There's a level of just a different, like I said, my son still carries, a lot of the amazing things that come out of the military with him. And that, I think it's, like you said, it's always going to be part of who he is. And that experience grew him into who he is today. Now, I don't know. My youngest son might make a career out of it. He might stay in. He really loves what he does. but
and I
it's the
think that's
military.
important.
Yes, he
It's
loves what he
important.
does.
If you like what you do, then like it's easier to stay. And if you don't like what you're doing, and
No, because if you don't like what you're doing and you couple that with the yo-yo of military, it's like, I forget it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sure.
the politics of the military too. I know that that's a lot of what kicks people out of it, because they're like, I don't want all these people breathing down my back doing my job, where if I was in the civilian sector, they would just have to respect me a little bit more, I think, especially as a lower enlisted, where they're like, I'm doing my job, but I'm still getting punished for everybody else not doing their job. And it's a different atmosphere. So I think a lot of them, that isn't for them, and that's fine too.
Yeah, because like in the civilian world, you go to your boss and you complain, right? In the military, not so much.
Yeah. No.
You kind of just gotta like ruck up, Buttercup. Like this is
Yes.
it, right?
Yeah, this is where you're at. I mean, even
Yep.
especially as a military spouse, it's the same thing. You hear the things that your spouse goes through, and you're like, well, we should go tell XYZ about that.
Yes!
That shouldn't happen. You're like, no,
Nope.
you can't do that.
Yeah.
No.
Don't even complain.
Who can I
to
call
his
for
wife
you
who
to make
regrets
this
So
that.
funny
happen?
because like spouses will be at like, I mean, I'm sure we've had like me and Sabrina have had these conversations before, other spouses like talking about like the stupid things that they do.
Oh,
You're
I remember
going,
being
like,
that lower enlisted spouse and being like, why did he keep you there till 7:00 at night? Can't we complain to somebody? Like, why was he doing that? And I mean, we knew then at the time that he was mad at his wife and he didn't want to go home. And so to us, it was like, how is that fair to everybody else? Why should you have to be at work? And
oh, that's the
there's nothing you
worst.
can do about it.
But it's
Yeah.
also like thinking of like they're doing things and you're sitting there as a spouse going like, there's a way easier and better way to go about this. Like, why is it like, I'm not even like trained to do this. And I can tell you that that is not the right way to like why isn't this?
Let me help
like,
you.
I'm always like, why are buses scheduled? Like, why did you have to run back from the range? Like that's like a 10-mile like hike. Like, why wouldn't you guys have transportation? And of course, like the answer you always get is like that shrug, like, I don't know. And that's just should be the military motto is, I don't know. That's just what we had to do.
I'm not in charge. I don't know.
I know it's rough. Yeah. And listening to it, it's like, this is just nonsense. Let us fix this for you. Like we can
Right.
fix this problem. Yeah.
So I want to kind of circle back to the whole being a military spouse versus being a military mom, and then being like a mother-in-law and the differences of that, because I know that that's a huge factor, like Ashley said, with the FRGs, because those spouses do become the point of contact if they get married, and then it becomes, you have to have a relationship, and even if you don't get along, you have to figure out a way to have open communication, because it's not fair to moms, you know, like to have no access.
If you're like a family who's like divorced, like if you're still just like a mom and a dad for your soldier, but you guys are no longer together.
Yeah, who's the point of contact?
Who's that point of contact? Which of course, that point of contact, if you're listening and you don't know, it is whoever your soldier puts down. Your FRG advisor or your point of contact has no control over who they are contacting. It is the soldier's discretion. So if they put they could put a girlfriend down, and that's who we have to contact. Of course, you know, that depends on the command team too, on whether they'll allow that, but like we can only contact who that person is on our roster. And so how do you go about making sure that you have a cordial relationship with whoever you are with if you have a service member in the armed forces?
It shifted with us, right? So it had been Mike and I, we would be the first contact. And then when Matthew got married, of course, like I said, it needs to be his wife. Like that's how, you know, it's supposed to be. And so with that, they've been super great about like when he had to go to special training and like, oh, you guys all need to come down for this. Like they've been super inclusive about letting us be part of as much as we can be. Now, of course, there's a baby coming and it's going to be born on a military base and we can't get on, and COVID and blah, 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 but it is what it is. But having the relationship with my daughter-in-law has been, you have to really focus on that relationship, because if that goes sour, right? If that goes bad, that is my point of contact to him. That's how I know that he's okay. That's how, you know, if he's overseas and he does call her, or he's able to text her or whatever, because they often don't have communication. Like if you're out somewhere, like you don't have cell phones and you have to wait till they get back to base or whatever, it's super important that you put stupid stuff aside, because your main goal, like you both love the same man. It's the same man that you want to support. And for me, it's not worth him stressing about the women in his life not getting along, right? I mean, that's the last thing that he needs to know is that my wife and my mom are going at it. Like, that's the last thing that I want. I don't want that worry on their plate. So whatever I can do to bring peace to that situation and trust that, they're doing the same thing, that's my role as a mom. Like, I need to know that the way that I best support him is to best support her, whatever that looks like for her. And it's different for everyone. If she didn't have kids, now she's about to have kids. So how do I be a good grandma for her? Or how do I step in and help with the kids? Or how do I make sure that she's got time to self-care, because deployments are hard and being by yourself is hard and being a single mom is hard. You ladies know that. I don't know what that's like, because I've never had that, but I surely don't want her to have to do that by herself. So just learning, it's different than civilian mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship.
It really is. It's really is. Than that. Yeah. It's, and I hope those who are listening who don't have a good relationship with their in-laws or with their daughter-in-law or son-in-law, whoever it may be, kind of takes it to heart and thinks about it a little bit, because it can be a stressor for your soldier if they know that back home you guys are not getting along, and you want to make sure that everyone is getting the information. So even if it means during that deployment time, you guys set aside your differences and you don't even have to talk to them. Like FRG sent emails like with information, just simply click the button, forward it, because you're allowed to do that. You just can't post it on social media. Just click that button and forward it to whoever you are, including parents who are no longer, like spouses or, moms who no longer get along with the soldiers, other parent, like do the same thing. Just click the forward button, type in an email, hit send. That's all you have to do. If that's the bare minimum of what you're doing to at least keep everyone who should be informed, then that's the bare minimum of what you can do for your soldier. Like, that's what I personally get really frustrated when I have parents or spouses who are like, we just can't talk to them. Like, they're just unbearable and we just And I'm like, they're your family. Like, no matter where you are in that relationship, whether you're divorced or whether you are like, you just don't like your daughter-in-law for whatever reason, like, they're in your life some way or another. And you have to just accept that, whether you like it or not. Like, I mean, you don't have to like it, but you need to accept the fact that they're in your life, and you need to take those steps of being like, I'm a grown up and do the things that I need to do to make sure that everyone is completely in the know.
Well, and like Sherry was saying, you all love the same person. This is all in it for the same reason. You all want to make sure that that person's supported, that they feel loved, that we know what's going on with them when they're downrange. You're all in it for the same reason, whether you like each other or not. You still need to be able to have that contact and allow there to be an open window where you can talk about it too. Because even if you don't get along, if something is happening and you need someone to talk to, who is going to understand more than their parents or their spouse? They're not. Those are the people that know them the best. So why not have at least that opening where, like, we're not friends. We don't need to talk about everything that's going on in my life, but we need to be able to, when it comes to this soldier, we need to be able to talk about what is going on.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to encourage, like, the mother-in-laws that are listening, and you have to just reconcile that this wife, like your daughter-in-law, is your son-in-law, that's your child's best person. That's their person.
Yeah, that's
right?
Their person. Like, that's who they're going to pick. They will pick over anything else is that person.
Yes. So how do you put aside everything else and you love that person because you love your child, and that's your child's person. And it's important to your child that you're supporting their person. That's, when my son goes away, he's like, do you have my person? Are you taking care of this person while I'm gone? I need to know that their back is covered. And yes, I will put aside everything, whatever it is, and I will make sure that your person's taken care of because I love you. Even if, you you having a conflict with the person, your child's person, you love your child enough to say, I love the things you love, and I'll help take care of the things that you love. So that's my heart in that is, how do I love them well in that place? How do I support them best? Because it's not about me, and it's not about being right or wrong. It's about, in the moment, how do I best be a military mom to my child and their person?
Yeah. Also, knowing that you can repair a relationship at any time. I can tell you from experience, I did not always have the best relationship with my in-law. It was very rocky at the beginning, but now, like, I love my mother-in-law. Like, I text her daily. She's always like, hey, what do you need? Like, when my husband's gone, what do you need? Can I help here and there? I mean, my father-in-law is the same way, but I didn't have a good relationship. And then we both worked on that relationship over the years. And now we have an amazing relationship, and I can genuinely call her my mom. Like, I can go to her for any type of issue, or if I'm just super stressed and I'm just needing to vent. She was also a military spouse. So like, she has a little bit better understanding of how things happen as a spouse. And so I can go to her and just be like, why the hell is this so frustrating right now? Like, what is going on, type of thing. And I genuinely love that we have that relationship to where we can have that communication. Or if she knows that I'm super stressed out because my husband has left, has rapidly deployed multiple times this year and is doing trainings left and right, like, I know that she will come help me if I just ask. And
So good.
That's, I think, really important, especially when you have kids. I mean, it's very different from when you're just a spouse and you don't have kid responsibilities. So when you do have kid responsibilities, and having that extra support from somebody who just gets it, who knows, like, I know that feeling of like not knowing what's happening with a soldier, let me come help you, or come here, or do whatever it is. So it's important that you can repair those relationships. Your relationship started off rocky, just be open and work out those things. Like, do a mom and daughter night day out, talk about it, find something in common and connect there.
And maybe they don't even know why you guys don't get along. Maybe they said something that totally offended you, but they didn't mean it to offend you. And then all of a sudden it just escalated to this point where you don't want to talk to them.
And again, you guys are from parents and spouses, especially spouses, young spouses nowadays, to compare to like moms today, very different generations. And we view things very differently. So you have to take those things into consideration too when you're communicating with a person from a different generation. Don't just assume that, they don't like you. They just may not like something that you're doing, and they just haven't expressed it one way or another. Like, again, it's a relationship. It's not like oh, you're just in my life. Like, you have to work to build that relationship just same way you built that relationship with your spouse, or your boyfriend or your fiance or whoever it is that is your soldier. You build a relationship with them. You have to build a relationship with their family as well. Just like your spouse is going to need to build a relationship with your family.
Right. What's hard is that when you have I think a civilian relationship, it's very different. Because like with my Army daughter, right? She's my daughter-in-law. She is not close to me as far as location. Like, she's being moved around all the time. Like, she's got a lot of stressors in her life. And, I've heard you ladies talk about that. Like, you built a career in this place, and you're finally getting to where, oh, my job is amazing. And then they're like, yeah, no, you're moving and you're going someplace else. And so she's got a lot of stuff going on. And there's a lot of, stress on her just being the military wife. And she doesn't come from a military family either. So she's learning all the military stuff the first time through as well. So it's just, how do you navigate this together? I want her to feel like I can be a second mom to her. I want her to feel like, she's got support with us. And if, he deploys and she's by herself, come, like, be with us. You don't have to be by yourself, but you have to keep that communication open. And there are going to be super, super hard days. I'm going to have super hard days. She's going to have super hard days, but no one's going to understand the hard days more than she and I are going to understand it. Like, my mom's not going to get it. Her mom's not going to get it because they haven't been in the same environment. So she's going to be my biggest strength. Like, I'm having a super hard day right now because I haven't talked to him in 4 days, and today's just heavy. And she's going to be like, you know what? Me too. And we can have that relationship that you actually need if you can just get past any of the nonsense that wants to build itself up to be garbage.
But and I think it's also very healthy and it's 100% okay to set boundaries, whether you're a spouse or a mother-in-law, like
for sure,
or a mama, like set those boundaries, have those conversations saying, hey, he's deployed. I'm okay with X, Y, and Z, but really I like, homecoming is always one of those touchy-feely type of things. Like, I hear spouses all the time, like, I really just don't want the whole family there for whatever reason. And I understand that as myself too, because a lot of parents don't know, and a lot of new spouses don't know this. Like, it's not like they just get to come home and have all this free time. Having family fly from across the country. So say you're stationed here at Fort Bragg and your family lives in California, having your family fly all the way back for homecoming, like, yes, is a very special moment and you get to see them for the first time, but is it really a smart financial decision to do? Probably not. Your soldier is going to have 20 minutes to say hello, and then he has to go right back to work. He might have 2 days off and has to go right back to work, or he may have 2 weeks off. It really depends. They never know until they arrive on what that's going to look like. So spouses are always like, I just want to have one-on-one time with them, and then the family can come later. And I'm like, set those boundaries. Say, hey, we know that you want to be here. For family that's only like a couple hour drive away that can drive right back home afterwards, it's okay. Like my in-laws, I never have a problem with them coming because they only live a few hours away. So if they come and they decide to leave right afterwards, like, it doesn't bother me any. But having family come in and invade your space when you're just seeing your spouse for the first time in a year can be really overwhelming. And so set those boundaries. Say, hey, he's coming home on this date. This is when block leave, because usually they have block leave schedule for after they come home from the deployment. We'd love to have you guys for this time. And then you get to spend all the time with him. Like, you're not going to be standing around not getting to see him.
And we've talked about reintegration many times, and there are going to be days in those first days that you're not going to be wanting to talk to your spouse even, because they're just going through it in their own head. They need to process it. So having family that's there, and that especially family that you don't see frequently and you want to be spending this nice time with, it may not be the best time to do that, because he may be like, I need to go sit in the room for hours and be silent, or listen to a podcast where I can talk to, or listen to other veterans that have been through it and going through reintegration, because they're not going to want to be social. I mean, some may. You have to know your spouse.
Yeah.
You have to know
it
them,
depends on your soldier for sure.
Yeah. And you have to know what they went through. I mean, each deployment's different. Some they may see combat where they just need time to process. So having a huge family get together is just not the thing that's going to fit for your life. But you need to be able to have that relationship with your family to be like, hey, I know this isn't going to work. I know you want to be here, but it's just not going to work. You're going to be disappointed because he's not going to come hang out. He's not going to want to go do dinner out in a loud public place. Like, I know this, I've seen this in him, and I want you to respect that, set that boundary, and be like, we would love to have you for Thanksgiving. We want to have a huge Thanksgiving or something, instead.
Well, and I think like boundaries need to be set on all parties. Like the soldiers need to set those boundaries, and being like, hey, having that conversation with your soldier, like, hey, we love to be there when you come home, if that's okay with you, and have that conversation before they even leave. Like, no, don't even wait until like the day of, like, have that conversation. A deployment's coming up, or that they're taking over an IRF cycle. Have that conversation saying, hey, we would love to be there. Are you okay with that? And your soldier's probably going to be like, depending on how far away you are. Cause I mean, like, getting a last minute plane ticket is really expensive. Flights change all the time. You're looking at taking days off from work. You're looking at hoteling costs. Like, is it really worth it to be able to see your son for 20 minutes? Some people are going to say 100% absolutely. And others are going to be like, I'd rather like actually get to spend time with him. And of course, like this year, like deployments, if you're in the middle of a deployment, you got to look at how their homecoming is going to be. I mean, we went through 2 rapid deployments this year, and both homecomings were completely different. They had to self-quarantine, like they weren't allowed to go anywhere for the first 4 days that they were home. So you can't even take your soldier out to dinner to celebrate their homecoming. If your soldier is a single soldier who's young enlisted, he lives in the barracks. Like, do you really want to go sit in a grimy, stuffy, dirty barracks? I guarantee you your soldier, if he was on IRF, left that barrack dirty. Like, do you really want to do that? So you have to kind of figure out what's best for your family, what's best for your soldier, if he's married or if he's not married. Have those conversations, set those boundaries as a family, and stick to them, because everyone's a human being and everyone handles stress differently. You know, I know my husband usually wants to just come home and lay on the couch,
Right.
snuggle, watch movies, eat pizza. That's usually all he wants to do. May go out to dinner the second night, but like the first night, usually like they've been traveling a really long time on not very comfortable airplanes, probably. And they need to decompress. So you just have to take it one moment at a time. Like, I would much rather, my family, I would much rather give him a couple of days to decompress and then be like, the following weekend, everyone come and visit. We will have a big party. We will go out to dinner. We can have a party at the house and we can just spend time as a family. Because those first couple of days, they're going to be at work. They have to make sure all their equipment is arrived, nothing's missing, everything.
Yeah. So my experience with this, it's brutal, you know, when you talk to your soldier or, you know, whatever, and they tell you, I just can't have a big welcome home party. You know, because your heart is, oh my gosh, she's coming home and I can't wait to meet the plane and Sam. And you have this whole rainbows and lollipop and daisies thing in your head. And, when he first came home from his first deployment in Afghanistan, there was a time when they sit and they're waiting for their plane home, right? So they're at a base and they're just waiting to come home. And during that time, he's realizing, I don't have the mental capacity to deal with my mother right now. Like, I just can't deal with her.
And that's majority of soldiers, just so those who are listening, they probably don't even really want to deal with like crazy kids and their spouses either. But they don't have a choice in that matter because that's where they live.
They're going home. Right. They have to. So I know that it took him a lot to say that to me, because my heart is, I want to be his biggest support. Right. And so in my heart, the biggest support is to be there when he gets home, because that's what we did all through his life. We were at his football games. We were at his award ceremonies. We were at all those things. But in this moment, the biggest support that I can give him is to say, it's not about what I need, it's about what he needs.
Yeah.
So if the only reason that I want to be there, and I could choke up on it, because I want to be there, but I have to say the best support I can give him is to let him have some time to decompress with his wife in his own surroundings and to find out what he needs. And then to say, hey, Mom, Easter's next weekend, would you please come down? And at that moment when he needs me, it's so much more powerful than me forcing myself on him in a mental state that he can't even be present the way that I want him to be, right? Yeah. I need him to be able to want his family around him. So we said that's going to be the hardest day in our life, is to know that you're home and we can't see you. But it's also going to be the best day in our life because you're home and you're safe. And I have to remember that that's it. And so when I got the text from his wife, his plane just landed in the States, I just completely like hyperventilated, and I let go of a breath that you hold for a year, right? Because he's finally stateside and safe. And I was like, that's all I needed. I just need to know he's here. And then he'll call me when he has time. He's going to reach out when he's available. And then we will go down and have just an amazing, we're so glad you're home party, you know?
Yeah. So you just have to talk with your soldier, like find out what they want. If they want you there, then 100% be there.
Yes.
But again, I really stress this because I know that there's families who literally will max out credit cards to come home to a homecoming that isn't even a special homecoming. Like it's so like, you know, like they're just hopping off a bus and walking into the company. Like, and to me, that would make, like, if I was that child, I would be so stressed out. Like, I'd be like, why did you do that? Like I would have much rather have you save that money and come see me at a time where I could actually spend some one-on-one time with you, because they're not, like, I really hope people understand that, like, just because they're home, they're not free to do what they wish. Like they have, they're in the military, they have responsibilities. So making sure that you know that and have that conversation with your soldier will really help make those decisions because you can always do a homecoming party. Like, you can create that special moment when you first see them. Like if they're flying home during Black Leaf, do your homecoming party at the airport, make those signs, bring all the people out, welcome them there. You can still have those moments without causing stress on your soldier, causing a financial stress on yourself, causing stress on your soldier's significant other.
Yeah, for sure. And we did that. Like we had, because he, doesn't live in Michigan. So when he came home from Michigan, we had the big party. Like when he's ready for it, we'll do those moments. But you have to remember that I'm probably never going to know everything that he goes through. Like he's not going to tell his mom those things.
Doesn't even tell his spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't open up.
I hear.
And so
my husband, like I said, my father-in-law was military too. And so I will hear my husband telling him stories and I'm just like, you never told me that story.
Yeah. And for me, I think he'll tell me less because he doesn't want it in my head because he knows that, I think he tells his wife more, but she's the same way. She's like, I heard him talking in there last night with so-and-so, and he never said that to me. And I'm like, you're not supposed to be eavesdropping. He don't want you to know that.
He doesn't want you. Yeah. He doesn't want the next deployment to be harder for you because you actually know the realities. Yeah.
So to have him say, okay, now I'm ready for all the pomp and circumstance and the big, hullabaloo, that's when it's fun. It's not fun to force
it on him. You gotta plan it too. It's not just like a rushed decision.
Put together,
balloons and signs and people that you wouldn't be able to bring to homecoming will be there. Grandparents, and it's way
and it's going to be more intimate too. Like, yes, you can have an intimate moment at Green Ramp or whatever they call it in other branches, but I feel personally it would be more intimate moment if it's separated, like if it's just a soldier with the people who love him. Whereas at Green Ramp, there's just hundreds of people flying everywhere,
crowding into each other.
And the soldiers literally just want to go. Like they want to say hi, but they literally just want to go and drop off their weapons and get their stuff and get their keys to their vehicles and go home. They've been on a long flight. Like they literally just want to leave. Like I know every time I picked up my husband, he would like check his watch and be like, oh, like we still have like 5 minutes. Like I love you guys, but like I just want to get this done with, because it's going to take like another 2 to 3 hours for them to get everything like in, so that they can just get home, settle in and relax with the family. So yeah, just have to go with the flow, but also make sure you follow those boundaries.
For sure.
So Sherry is not only a mama to a soldier and sailor, but she is an author and she has released her first book this year. Can you tell us a little bit about how you wrote Remember the Lilies and why you felt that there needed to be a book about being a military mom?
Yeah, so I touched on this a little bit earlier, but for me, being thrown into the military, I didn't have, a support system, and I didn't have anybody in my circle. And so I just found myself lost and isolated, partly by choice, because like I said, I was kind of pushing away all the civilian people that were trying to offer support and help, but it was just making it worse. And I wanted to throat punch some of them. Mm-hmm. So if I isolate and I don't talk to them, then I'm not going to be the ugly person to them, because I know they mean well. But I just was like, God, you have got to help me get through all these emotions. Because I went through grief. I went through loss. I went through, blessing them to go into something that was terrifying. I had to go through, just a gambit of emotion. But I also knew that I wasn't the only one out there. And when I sat at those graduations and I watched 500 kids graduate, and I realized in these stands, there's got to be moms that are feeling the same thing that I'm feeling. There's got to be resources out there somewhere. And so I began to look for resources, and there's nothing. And so it was like, God just said, maybe you should just start journaling. So I just started writing out, all my thoughts. And I thought if I could put together a 30-day devotional where we could, read through a devotional while they're in boot camp, I could get it into their hands, and it would strengthen them during boot camp days so that we're ready to take on the world when they graduate. That was my plan. But what actually happened is it became chapters and not devotional. But what I find is that in the military, and you ladies do it so well with Deployed Love, is that there's a family that comes around you. Like, you don't have to do this alone. There's a family of people that enveloped my kids when I wasn't there. So when my son was in Japan for 4 years, I got to watch as like the the officers' wives of the squadron that my son was part of, they just wrapped them up and become moms to them, and were who they needed when I couldn't be there. And so I just began to say, God, how do I become a mom, like a military mom, the best that I can, and work myself into this military family? So I just wrote a book that would not only touch on the emotions we go through as military moms, but then empower us to take our role as military moms in this family. So in there's how do you mother, sons and daughters that don't have moms and dads? Like, how do you wrap them up, and how do you, send care packages and be there for the big moments, and, take them to dinner. And if you're at a boot camp graduation and there's a soldier there that doesn't have family that shows up to graduation, take them with you. Like, you become a mom in this circle. And I just really felt like if I could get this in writing and get it into some hands of moms, it would empower them to take their position where you don't feel defeated, you don't feel lost, you're validated in everything that you're feeling. But in the same moment, you become powerful as a military mom to be supportive in what the military does so well. And that's become a family in and of itself.
Yeah, I think it's important that moms and dads can feel connected to the military, that they can do things like whether you're sending care packages to your son for all of his buddies that are in the base or that are in the barracks. Some of my favorite volunteers are my mamas. They can be a key caller. They help me make phone calls during deployments when we need it. And you can 100% volunteer that time. If you want to help a little bit more, there are opportunities that you can. I've had parents send me money to take spouses out to dinner during deployments. I've had parents come during this last deployment. I had parents come through town. They were road tripping a couple places, and they're like, we just really want to meet you in person, and we want to just say we're grateful and everything like that. So I met them for breakfast and got to know them a little bit better. And it was really great. So like taking the time to reach out to your point of contact, make that family connection, build a family of your own with other military mamas, like find those Facebook groups, make those connections, start your own little group chat if you need to, but don't feel bad about connecting with military spouses. Like, okay, you might not fully connect really well with your military soldier's spouse, but find other spouses that you can connect to. There are spouses out there that are also military mamas. So you can have that connection. You just have to take a step out, find those people that you can connect with, and then go for it. Like, it can be scary.
Yeah.
Like, it's scary.
Yeah, I think if your kid's stationed clear across the states doesn't mean you can't get involved locally. If you're local to a different military base, why not? Like our Deployed Love is a good example. Our bases, we have different ones across the nation, but your son may be in Washington and you're in DC. Go to the Deployed Love event there and make that family connection where you still feel like you're surrounded by people who get it. You can come to those coffee socials and talk about your son, and it doesn't matter that he's in Japan. It doesn't matter where they are, because we're all still going through it. Like, we all are going to support you just as much as if he was stationed at our base.
And don't feel like you're going to be out of place, because like some of my favorite conversations that I've had as a military spouse has been with other military mamas, like getting a different perspective and understanding what it's like in different parts is really important for everyone to know, not just for military mamas, but for spouses as well. Like knowing that it's different feelings, it's different perspective. Like, yes, like that's their baby. And like, to me, like, my mother-in-law, like that's her baby. And I understand that she has different feelings. And then like, my husband is my person. Like, he's been my person for almost 15 years. It's a really long time. So making sure that everyone knows that like I don't want to say feelings over, no one's feelings is more important than the other. Like knowing that both feelings are validated. Both people have their rights to their feelings, and being respectful for those, like, that's different. The feelings are very separate. They're not the same at all. So having those conversations, if you can't have that conversation with your own mother-in-law, have those conversations with another military mama so that you can understand like, oh, well, that makes sense why she does that type of thing.
Right. So for me, it's super when you can find a way to give back, right? And like you said, if you have your son's not where you are, he's across the country or whatever, to me, if we can get a bigger picture of what a military mom is, like for me, I just want to mom everybody. So I want to mom all the wives that are left home, and I want to support them the best that I can. And I want to be there for them. And so like my son's friends, right, all their wives, I'm like, hey, I am here for you. If you need something, I want to be that adopted mom that helps in however I can, but also just locally, like where is the places that you can just pass out a mother's love to? Like God gave us a heart of a mother's love, and it wasn't just for our own children. Like that's who we are. Like we beat with mom's love. So who needs a mom today? That's kind of like, so that's where I put the energy, and that's kind of where the book goes. Like you can, I would send care packages out. My sons would just give me a name and an address, like this guy needs some mama, and I'm like, hey, I'm on it. And I will just send a package to a kid I don't even know, but for them to know that they have a mom across, the ocean praying for him, or, whatever, find a place that you can plug in. And, like you said, Ashley, it's not, I don't have, my feelings aren't any higher or less. It's just a different, like a mom's love and a wife's love. They're very different.
They're very different.
They're very powerful in their own right. And so you have to, be able to validate, this is how I feel and this is how she feels, but you're running after the same race. Like we're trying to support the same thing. So to be able just to hear the perspective of like the wives that are left at home, like it's, how do I support you well? How do I mother you well? How do I, come alongside of you, and vice versa? Like, how do I, how the daughters who come around and say, I know that it's your baby boy over there or your baby girl over there. Like, are you okay? Are you?
Yeah.
And being in, just having that military family come together. Nobody understands military like military. Like there's no other way to describe this, how military scoops you up and you just become part of this amazing family that's brothers and sisters and moms and dads that, support one another. It's
crazy because like, you don't even like have to make that connection. Like you're already ingrained into it. Like as soon as your soldier becomes a soldier or a sailor or a Marine, airman, like as soon as they take that oath, you are ingrained into that family. And all you have to do is say hi. And then you're in there and you are connected and you're part of that knit of people who understand. They might not fully understand because whether they're new to it or everything like that, but they understand the emotions that are going on and they're there for you, whether you're venting or if you are like, how can I help? And I love when mamas are like, how can I mama? Because I think it's important because not all soldiers have a family network back home. Like some of them join the military because they don't have that network. So
they wanted to get away from what it was.
Having moms who are like, what do you need? I've got you. And I love seeing that because I can see the difference in the soldiers knowing that they have someone that they can go home to Christmas for. Like, and if you're listening and you have single soldiers, like invite those soldiers home with your soldier. They may sit in the barracks on block leave doing absolutely nothing because they don't have anything to go back to. We have a lot of spouses who will, have them over for like Thanksgiving or Christmas, things like that. Like if they're staying home, but you can be that connection. You can be that extended family because we're already family. So why not invite them to the holidays? Right. And it's just a bonus child for you. Yes. I mean, I always consider the younger enlisted ones. Like if anytime we have anyone over, especially spouses, like I've always done that mama bird type of thing because I'm considered more of a seasoned spouse. But all those little 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old spouses that are coming, and I'm just like, oh, come here, like
right.
Like, let me help you. And I think it's important for moms to do that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've made some great connections with some sons from other moms, and daughters from other moms too. And they're lifelong connections, like even out of the military, they're still, our kids. And so if you can just open yourself up to not feel sorry for yourself because your sons and daughters are in the military, right? And you can begin to look beyond yourself, you're going to find a lot of places where your love can, be deposited on spouses and on other soldiers. And my heart just breaks if there's, if I find out that there's someone who's not going home for Christmas. They need to come to me. Like, come on home because, we're going to take care of you. It's just a powerful network. If you can begin just to think bigger than your own pity party. My son's deployed.
Yeah,
So.
no, absolutely. I have so many parents. Like if you think about it, like these are the people that I could call, they visit me. It's funny,
That's
like
so cool.
because we
Yeah.
were so young when we got in. We were those ones that Ashley was talking about. We were 18, 19-year-olds.
Sure.
And we were stationed in Hawaii, so far away from family. Like we had no connection to our family coming out and seeing us really. And we had families that took us in for Thanksgiving and brought us Christmas presents. And it's a connection that's never going to go away. They understand. They even understand more than my parents will ever understand. And it's, so I know if it's something that I need to ask that's military related, I can be like, hey, because it's like my best friend Jasmine, hey, can I talk to your dad about like this that's going on? And there's that connection immediately. And he came and visited us last summer. It's nice.
That's really cool. That's cool.
So building that relationship is really important. And I'm glad that we brought you on here, and I really want to actually network with you outside of this and see how we can begin to support military moms, military dads, sisters, brothers, the ones that don't get always included in the military family, how we can start bringing that together with Deployed Love to get you guys connected a lot more. But it was really great having your perspective today.
Thank you guys for having me. It was really fun. I love chit-chatting with you guys, and it's always enlightening to me to hear talk to the spouses, because you guys have like this inside line on military, which I just always learn a ton when I talk to them. So thank you.
Yeah. And like always, if you will link Sherry's website and her book in the notes today, like Sabrina said, it was really great to get your perspective. We don't always get to see that as spouses. So it was really nice. And if you're listening, we are always looking for new guests to come on. So if you're interested in coming on, reach out to us. And if you'd like to support Deployed Love and the podcast, we can take donations, but we also have our annual virtual 5K coming up. We're really excited about it. And this year, we're gearing it towards our military kids. So if you want to sign up, you can sign up, and those proceeds will help us reach more hearts across the country and be able to connect with more mamas and siblings and spouses. So you can find that all on our Facebook page, and we can post those links also in our show notes today. And as always, Ruck up, Buttercup.